Thanks, folks. Yes, it's a bit of an audacious title, a blueprint for building better digital products. And many of us are building products as we speak or have ambitions to build products. But today, I want to start with a story about David and Mary. And David is an operations manager at a small logistics firm local here in Northern Ireland. The company are growing, but they're really struggling to scale because every time they bring on new customers, they're needing to grow their admin team. But David has an idea. They have a lot of systems. They've warehouse, they've accounting, and they've dispatch systems. And he thinks if he can bring that information together and create a customer portal where his customers can interact with the business directly, he can actually provide a much better service, continue to scale the business, but without having to scale the back office operations at the same sort of rate. He brings the idea to his boss, who loves it, and gives him the green light to go out and sort of find a solution to this particular problem. Meanwhile, Mary is a project manager at a large digital publishing company. They're used to building digital products, but Mary's been tasked with building an app for one of their digital publications. And there's some innovative ideas that they want to include in this app. She's provided with concept designs and some high-level requirements. And Mary approaches then Sam, who is their head of software development. Sam explains that the team are really working with Agile as how they approach software development now. And looking at the requirements and discussing the project in detail, Sam estimates that the project will take somewhere sort of between 8 and 10 two-week sprints to complete. And the great news is he's a team ready to go. They can start in about 2 weeks. David, meanwhile, has to insist on a fixed price quotation from external suppliers. He finds there's no out-of-the-box solution, so he's going to have to actually build something, and he goes to the market to get suppliers to quote for it. But what completely catches him off guard is the wide range of costs that come back. He gets a quote for 12K to up to 200K for the same set of requirements. He's got a document detailing out everything that he wants. Why is there such variety in the costs? David's a smart guy, and he doesn't just go, I'll go with the 12K option, cheapest is best. He speaks to the suppliers and he gets a good feel that, you know, the company at 60K, he reckons he could work with them. They've got good referenceability. So he proposes that to the board and gets approval to continue with it. The project starts both for Mary and David. And at the start of the project, there's quite a lot of excitement. There's a lot of enthusiasm about what we're going to build here. There's going to be this great product at the end. And everybody's really enthused and working together. And we've got great processes and plans as to how we're going to deliver this software. For Mary, it's an agile process, so she's involved in sprint plans, daily stand-ups, retrospectives, and she's involved in every decision along the way of making the product. David, on the other hand, is working with his supplier, and they meet every couple of weeks. They present some really nice designs that David signs off on, and then they go to work on the actual product. And when David first comes, several weeks into the project to see what the team have built, he's kind of a bit disappointed. He kind of had this vision in his head about what this product would look like, but what he's got has some functionality, but not quite living up to his vision. Now, the company assure him, it's okay, we got this. We've got to get the fundamentals right. We've got to get the features right. And once we've got the features, we'll add the polish later. It'll be grand. It'll be fine. Meanwhile, Mary is actually delighted with the output her team is producing. The agile process allows her to feed back in, allows her to review what's done, and feed back into the next development sprint with new features. The problem for Mary, though, is they're 8 sprints into their 8 to 10 week estimate, and they've got some brilliant features, but they've only got half them. So what's been built is super. It matches Mary's vision, but it's not quite there yet. Ultimately, you'll be glad to know for both David and Mary, both projects did complete. But Mary's project went over budget, or went over time by 4 months before she got the product that she wanted. For David, there was a bit of tension between him and the supplier, as the supplier was really feeling under the cosh with the budget and changing requirements, and there had to be a lot of tough discussions. And these two projects that started off with such optimism and enthusiasm, but approached them with very different approaches, ended up with the similar stress and frustration and not quite meeting the goals that they were aiming for. Now, if you've been involved in delivering a digital product, I suspect that one of these two stories, and maybe both, ring true to projects that you've been involved in. So many IT projects start out with a great plan, but fail to either deliver at all or majorly overrun on budget and timeline. There's got to be a better way of doing this. At GCD, we've spent over 2 decades building digital products, and we actually have the benefit of working from one-man startups right up to large multinational organizations, working on small projects right up to large-scale web applications. And that gives us a lot of insight. And I'll be honest, we have made some of these mistakes along the way. But we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can deliver digital products with the certainty that you can actually hit your deadlines and deliver on the goals and still deliver great products. The ideas I want to share with you today won't all be new. Many of you may already be using some of them. They're not all mine either. And I've drawn from lots of different sources. But hopefully, my hope for today is my journey and our journey at GCD, you can learn 1 or 2 things that you can take away and use on your next digital project. For us, digital product development is largely a 4-step process. We start with discover, where we discover what the product is and why we're building it. We move on to the delivery, followed by testing and iterating. Unlike physical products, where once you've built an iPhone 13 and sent it to manufacture, it's done. The software can be updated, but the hardware is locked in. With software, we have both the blessing and the curse that we can continually iterate and evolve and make software better. And with software products, there is an expectation from your customers that that's exactly what you will do. This process of discovery we find so critical. Customers often come to us with a very clear set of requirements and a very clear idea of what they want to build. But I've never come across a project where we've sat down and gone through a detailed discovery exercise where we haven't learned something new and where we haven't changed the ultimate plan of what we're going to build. For us, discovery starts with why. Simon Sinek, in his book, Start With Why, talks about how businesses should really understand their why in order to be successful. And once you've got your why, everything else of the how and the what will flow out from there. We believe the same applies for digital products, whether that digital product be your entire business or whether it just be a small part of your business. Understanding the why you're building this product informs so many other decisions along the way. Once you've got to the why, we actually start to look at OKRs. So some of you may have heard of OKRs, or objectives and key results. They are a goal-setting framework that was initially introduced at Intel and popularized by John Doerr in his book, Measure What Matters. Again, this is a business framework for goal setting and alignment. Famously, Google used OKRs from they were very small, out of their garage of 30 people, right up to today. And many businesses use OKRs in order to set their objectives for their business. They're equally applicable for products. Understanding the objectives that this product has to achieve, and then listing out the key results that will give you measurable proof that you have met those objectives. Setting those up from the outset, again, informs so many of the later decisions that you make during the discovery process. Your objectives should be ambitious. They should stretch you, and they should push what you want to achieve. During this early phase of the discovery process, we like to go wide. Anything is possible. No idea is a bad idea, and it's okay. Everything is on the table. But very quickly, once we've got all of the ideas out there and all of the thoughts that this product could have, it's important to start narrowing in on what you really should build. Research is an important element here, looking at your competitors, speaking to your customers, understanding the users that will use your product is crucial to finding out what it is that you should build. Ultimately, for us in discovery, we aim to get to what we call a prioritized requirements list. In doing that, you can actually use tools like the business model canvas or the Lean UX canvas, which are great tools to actually draw out those ideas and really hone in on what it is that you should be building and who you're building it for. But ultimately, we're trying to get this prioritized requirements list. The requirements list is nothing more than a big list of features. For us, that list of features, we like to put limits on it, because at this discovery stage, we don't want to get too detailed. I like to think about it almost like Google Maps. Whenever you're zooming in on a country, for instance, you can look at the country view. You don't see all of the individual streets. You don't see all of the roundabouts and all of the detail, but you can see the shape of the country. You can see the large items that make up that, features that make up that country. And at a prioritized requirements list, you're trying to get to that level. We actually then sort of have constraints there. We try to work with around 100 items in our prioritized requirements list. And that's just a bit of a rule of thumb. If you start to go way above that, you actually make a list that is so big that nobody can kind of keep the full shape of the product in their head at one time. We break that list down further by using what we call epics, which are large groups of features. And again, we apply a rule of thumb of trying to limit yourself to 10. Some products it's less than that, some products it's a few more than that. But if you've got too many epics or features in your prioritized requirements list at this stage, you're either got a project that needs broken down into smaller projects or phases, or you're maybe working at too much detail at this stage. Discovery is about understanding the shape of what you're building, not specifying every single field and every single button that will appear on every single screen. Once you've got those lists of features, the next thing that you need to do is actually prioritization. And for us, this prioritization at this discovery phase is so important for achieving success in your digital product. There's a tendency for people to go, everything is a must-have. Everything must be in this product for it to be successful. We need all of these features. We can't cut out any of them. But actually, this is where you can go back to your why, and this is where you can go back to your product OKRs. If there is an item on your requirements list and it's going to have no impact on any of your key results, well, then maybe it's actually not required. And the important thing here is we're talking about phase one. We're talking about our initial build of our product. So if we specify something as a won't have, it doesn't mean never. It doesn't mean we'll never add that feature. It just means not now. Also, having those could haves and should haves gives you the levers to pull whenever things do go awry or things take longer. You've got features that you can go, do you know what? We'll maybe get to those later. They may not make it into the product, but we've already decided that this product can be successful without them. So it gives you a lot of freedom to play. I also like to keep my won'ts on that prioritized requirements list. Some people like to, okay, throw them out, they're not there. But at that prioritized requirements list, I like to leave the won'ts because they keep that decision. Because often ideas pop up re-pop up in later discussion in the development of a project. And it's useful to look back to that prioritized requirements list and say, do you know what, we considered that idea, but we actually decided not now. Now, during the development, that decision might change, and that's okay too, but having it on your prioritized requirements list gives you the assurance to go back and go, we did talk about that, but we made an active decision. Once you've got your prioritized requirements list as part of our discovery, we like to use wireflows. Now, some of you may be familiar with wireflows, but some of you may be familiar with wireframes, which are sketches or rough outlines of how screens should look. Again, it's really important to not get into the detail during discovery. Our wireflows are kind of a low-resolution cross between a flowchart, which documents a process, but also some screens that turn them into something tangible. And the wireflows help bring your ideas to life. They help get buy-in from others in the team. They help show customers what you're thinking about bringing to bear and getting their insight on them. And they're great for testing ideas, but also for spotting risks, spotting areas that might be a little bit tricky. And that takes us on to the next thing for us, is about actually looking at proof of concepts during our discovery phase. We often identify those high-risk, either technical or design requirements that are crucial for the success of this project. And we talk about, is there an early prototype that we can actually do, or an early proof of concept? We did one recently during a design sprint where we had some audio processing to do. And there was a lot of risk in this audio processing. And we did a small 4-day proof of concept to see, could we process the audio and get to the desired output? And that was a developer working early in that discovery phase. But now we're going into the delivery phase of this project with great certainty about the key tools and approaches that we're going to take to achieve the outcomes. It's also useful for third-party APIs that you may be dependent on and testing those and see, do you get the information? There's nothing worse than building a whole product that depends on an API and then finding that that API doesn't live up to the promise that you expected. This process of prioritized requirements and wireflows allows us to actually scope projects with a firm degree of certainty about putting together a project plan and timeline with estimates against the features that we're going to develop, but with enough wriggle room built into that with our prioritization that we can embrace change and we can change the scope of the project during the delivery phase. This discovery may look like, oh, this is going to take a long period of time and extend the life of our project. But we have had great results with our product design sprints in 4 to 6 weeks, where we're taking an idea with very little else and taking it through a process of building up the prioritized requirements, the wireflows, understanding those objectives, and really understanding the why. Some of those projects absolutely go on to delivery, but actually some of those projects stop there, because they've learnt early enough that that's not the right project, or they haven't got the right approach, or the business isn't the right place. And it's much cheaper to make tough decisions like that during discovery than it is whenever you're 3/4 of the way through your development budget. These inputs are key for the next phase of moving into development. And for us, in development, it's really important that you've got the right team. Up here is just a few of the sort of roles that you need in a successful product team. You need representation from these. This list is by no means complete. And this isn't necessarily you need all of these individuals. Some individuals can wear multiple hats. And actually, a lot of these roles can be outsourced if you don't have them in-house. But there are two that I really want to draw attention to that I firmly believe can't be outsourced. And that would be the product visionary and the business ambassador. The product visionary for us is the person who wants this product to exist. It may be the person that came up with the original idea. It may be the person that's holding the purse strings, but they're invested in making this thing happen. They may or may not have the time to be intimately involved, but it's really in their interests to make this happen and to get it right. The business ambassador role for us is the person representing the organization, whether that be internal or external, but it's the person, whether working with an outsourced company. The business ambassador is the person that navigates the business and ensures that you're speaking to the right customers at the right time, the right staff, you're getting the right domain experts, and understanding that the project is going ultimately in the right direction and delivering on the product vision. Now, I'm not going to open the can of worms about Scrum versus XP and various different agile methodologies. That's a talk in and of itself. But we do believe in the process, the basic principles of agile. Now, I've interviewed thousands of developers over the years, and I love asking about their experience with agile and the range of answers I get. For us, agile is not about those, not about sprints. It's not about stand-ups. It's not about retrospectives, Scrum XP. It's actually about building software gradually in cycles where where you welcome changing requirements. But the important thing with changing requirements is the changing requirements should be for competitive advantage. You shouldn't be changing requirements because somebody thinks it should be a different way. You should be looking at the overall project plan, and you should be looking back to your why and your objectives. And if it makes sense to make a change to your project to support your objectives, that's fine to do. And you can do that while understanding the greater impact that it's going to have on the project as a whole. It's about accepting that there may be changes even late in the development process, but those changes should be made carefully and with a clear understanding of their ultimate impact. For us, Agile is also about using working software as the primary measure of progress. It's no good to get a video of how something works or a little screenshot. You've got to use the software yourself. You've got to see it. You've got to play with it. You've got to understand in those early days, it might just be the first couple of parts. It might be that first piece of the jigsaw that you're building. But it's really important that you're using working software and you're actually getting hands-on with it. And the whole team are involved in thinking that the working software is the primary measure of progress. I've seen so many projects that have said, oh, it will all come together in the end. All of the bits will eventually fit together, and inevitably don't. You need to have continuous working software. Those are the key tenets of Agile that I feel are so important. If you're working in Agile, I'm amazed at the number of people who work in Agile teams that have never actually read the Agile Manifesto. And looking back at those 12 principles and 4 values, it's a 5-10 minute read, but they are so applicable today as they were whenever they were first written. And that's the important pieces about building good software. Agile doesn't mean don't have a plan. In fact, quite the opposite. It means have a plan, but be adaptable. And tools like our prioritized requirements list and the priorities of could have gives us the freedom to make those changes. We often start by planning our epics and planning those high-level features and looking at the themes that we're going to tackle along a project life cycle. But it's really important to have that plan, but keep revisiting it as changes happen, as inevitably something goes over. You've got to understand what impact that's going to have on the overall plan. I'm actually not a big fan, and GCD, we're not big fans of the term sprint, which is very common in Agile. And sprint is what we talk about for a cycle of work. And sprints can be 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. There's various different cycles of work. We don't like the word sprint because it implies running as fast as you can. And when you've sprinted, you're knackered at the end. And we don't want our teams to be knackered at the end of every sprint. It's really important that you find a pace that you and your team can work at, that you can actually work at indefinitely, that you can continue working at that pace and continue delivering software so that the pace does not change over time or the team get burnt out. It's also really important to keep shaping your product. So in the discovery, we're starting to put the outline in place. We're trying to understand the big features and the big chunks that make up this particular project. But we find it's important to keep shaping during delivery of a software project. Keep asking those questions and delving into more detail. We often do this ahead of time and not during an actual development sprint. So if there are unknowns on a feature coming up, we will set aside time to actually shape that further and get more clarity and deal with more of the unknowns before it is part of the development backlog for the team to actually work on and develop that feature. And that can take a lot of the same tasks from discovery around building proof of concepts and just speaking to the customer and really understanding what is needed. And we find that process of just constantly shaping and molding your product is really important. We believe by using some of these techniques, it is actually possible to deliver great digital products, not just mediocre ones that we ran out of time and we only built the skateboard, not the car, and actually do it on time and on budget. But with an agile process like this, you can't say this is something for the development team to worry about. You can't say this is just their area, they'll worry about agile, I don't have to worry about it. This only works if everybody from the CEO right the way down are brought into this approach, are brought in and are bought into the idea of focusing on the outcomes that we want to deliver for our customers and not the individual outputs that we are delivering. To just summarize what I covered today, it is possible to deliver on time and budget, but start with that why. Prioritize those requirements and assume that your plan will change. When we're doing sprint plans, we actually build in a feedback sprint every 6 cycles or so. And that actually allows us to adapt and to cope with change. Getting the team right is crucially important. Have those skills. Constant communication between business and technical, again, are absolutely crucial. That working software in your hands, using it, is the only measure that your project is on plan and will launch on time. But remember, launching your digital product is actually only the beginning. I haven't touched on testing and iterating, but you've got to remember when you build a digital product, invariably, you'll not get everything right first time. You have to, and we have this wonderful opportunity to learn in real time often from our customers, see what works and what doesn't work, and iterate and evolve our products. We've put together an ebook sort of covering off some of the stuff that I've talked about here and going into a wee bit more detail. You can go to our website and sign up to get a copy of that ebook. Our stand is actually GCD stand just across the way, and I'll be there afterwards. And I love talking about digital product development, so if anybody wants to discuss it further, I'd love to chat to you about it there. Thank you very much.
Andrew, thank you very much. Couple of questions for you. I don't know if you noticed, if you watched everybody's faces out there, there was kind of an audible gasp when you said it is possible to deliver digital products on time and on budget, because I think everyone out there was like, not a chance. Is it really possible?
It is possible. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's about building in that adaptability. You have to build in those levers to adapt for the change. And the key ones for us is that prioritized requirements list is one of those. And by saying and calling out early that you've got things that may not make it into this project, and the business is okay with that. It's not just the development team can decide, oh, we're not going to get to that feature and somebody's disappointed. That we're building in from the outset, we have a plan to deliver everything. But if it doesn't go to plan, I had a little quote that I didn't say, but you know, there's the military expression of no plan sort of survives first contact with the enemy, and it's the same with digital products. But if you build in enough levers to adjust the scope and be open to adjust the scope and be building in those contingencies of feedback cycles, it is possible to do.
Brilliant. I'm really glad that's the military expression you went with, because there's a few others I know as well that are probably not great for a public. Excellent. Anyway, Andrew Gough, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.